Hi, everyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at Mr. Fox here. So on learning to see objects, what we're looking for here is a method for breaking down a character or odd thing that you have to draw when you maybe have not drawn it before. And so like for this fox here, I have a couple of different sort of methods to get into the drawing itself. One, which is to basically map out the overall length of or size of the object itself, meaning that this line right here, this curved line actually represents the torso, sort of the head through the body and out through the tail. That sort of maps out and gives me the space that I'm going to use on my page. So let's go ahead and begin with that. So I'm going to begin with what fox over here is go ahead and start off with the drawing of the top of the head here, right? And we're going to take it down and very quickly up into the torso and down and back out into the tail. There we go. This sort of gives us sort of the head, the torso here, and back into the tail. It gives us the overall width of the body. And it's a good way to map out the space on your sketch pad so that you don't run out of room. Okay, that being said, let's go ahead and start off with the next part of this, which is to go ahead and draw basic shapes that you see in the object you're looking at. So in this case, then let's start off with the torso. So I'm going to start off with this sort of oval shape here. I'm going to make it a little bit more curved than in my drawing there. A little more like a kidney bean there. Make that longer. And as far as the head goes, you notice the head here, we have this sort of elongated, again, oval back on this shape here. For the head, for the snout, we have almost a sort of triangular cone-like shape that very quickly comes down and out, right? We have two triangles on the tops of the head here. So we have the one which is a little bit larger and closer to the viewer here. And the other one sort of behind it there is kind of pointing forward a little bit there. They kind of overlap a little bit there. So we're going to have that on these two here. Then we go back over here and we see the legs themselves. Now, one of the things to notice in the photograph here, you'll notice that in the photo that the feet are just a little bit lower than the bottom of the tail. They're not above the bottom of the tail. They're not really far below, but they come very close. And that's an important thing to take a look at. That whenever you're drawing an object, is to look for those relative shapes and the scale of those things. So I notice right here, I'm drawing this sort of almost a triangle here. And the bottom here, I'm just going to kind of bring that foot down. And I'm going to bring that foot out a little bit and flatten that, like he's sort of standing there flat on the ground. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and put the hind quarter leg in. And this really sort of comes in this sort of larger two section. We sort of see this larger triangle here, which sort of leans backwards here. It's a little bit bigger up on the top here. But then we hit that leg here, this joint, it actually comes forward a little bit, a little bit of a diagonal here. And I'm going to bring this down and bring that toe out a little bit. So like I did before there. I'm going to bring like a little bit of the foot out, like so. Now for the tail itself, we're going to go ahead there and draw that almost in a couple, like a little rectangle coming down, a little longer on this side, putting a little diagonal there. And then we're going to come and have this little piece here, which comes up and comes down and back in around here, right? So we're going to play with that shape. There we go. So kind of bringing that a little bit more so here. I'm going to bring that bit of the tail back up again. It's always okay to adjust. So there we go. Bring it back in this way. Yeah, I like that better. There you go. So I've got some basic shapes in here and kind of lining up the body. Now the next thing for me to do is to go back in and to bring what I call the slash marks. These, because the slash marks right here, is basically these drawn an angular sketch which uses straight lines to allow the lines to overlap. And you start to get a little bit more of the body coming together. So let's go ahead and do just that. So I'm going to go ahead, put my fox in there, and I'm going to start off with these sort of lines that sort of work together. So here, 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 there. Sort of bring the body, kind of think about fluffing it out in this part in the tail here, bring out this hind quarter. I'm sort of looking at the body in itself, looking at the shape of the character here, right? Got some lines there. There we go. Bring that out. That's great. Majestic. Set here, and we go back in here. Now here the eyes are a little bit lower on there. But you know what I'm going to do now that I've got these lines and these sort of straighter lines in here? I'm going to go back and for clarity, I'm going to erase some of these setup lines. So I'm going to go back in, erase that line that I had in there, but lengthwise to establish the length of my character. Now I'll go back in with some of the shape lines that went through my object. Generally speaking, when you are drawing or developing a character or an illustration, the idea is that you don't draw it perfect once the first time, particularly if you're still learning how to draw and you're learning about shapes and shape management on the space. And what I'm looking at doing here is not creating an exact copy of the fox here, but what I'm looking to do is to create something that's inspired by that, says I spent time looking at the object, and it has, if you will, a ring of truth about it. It has something that alludes to the original shape and the spirit of the object we're looking at. So we can see that I've got the basic body in here. Now I need to go ahead and establish, if you will, to draw the cartoon of the object, which means the outline of the object. So now I'm going to sort of give a little bit of character. I'm not looking to put texture on there or shading, because working digitally, I would do that in the program. I would apply those things in the program. So now is where I'm going to go back in and add some more detail and kind of play with the fur a little bit. You'll notice here on the drawing where I've added a little bit of the fur that follows the curvature, or these little breakout areas here, where we see just a little bit of fur just sort of popping through here, giving us that sort of fur-like fluffy texture or finish to the wolf's, or excuse me, the fox's fur. So let's go ahead in here, and I'm going to go back in. Let's go and bring in that ear a little bit. You know, this ear is coming forward, a little bit of lines there. I've got a little bit here, and I've got the eyes in, which is pretty great. So I'll bring that eye over and up, and I'll put that one eye right there. Look at that right there. Another eye, we'll bring in that just all the eye right there. And let's go and put that snout in there. There we go. Got that in there. And kind of bring that out a little bit, that jawline. And over. And as far as that fur goes, I'm going to bring that down. We bring a little line here, a little curve right there. Going to break that out a little bit. Bring that over. Bring that. Let's soften this line up. We bring a little line out there, a little clump of fur coming down. Maybe one off the hind quarter here by the foot. There we go. And let's kind of bring this back over the back side. Let's smooth this line out right there. I'll put a little bit, maybe right there too, another little clump of the fur. And you'll see when I ink this, what this is going to look like. Right, so now I'm going to give that fluffiness that's on there. Right, and we'll kind of do this, maybe one little right there. There we go. So we'll kind of do that, and that's looking pretty good there. I'm pretty happy with that. A little bit of fluff there. So now what I have to do with this is I need to go back in now and add my ink. So certainly I'm going to go ahead and use my flexible nib pen, and I'm going to go back in and ink my guy. Now when I do this, again, some of you are saying, well, you know, how do I know when to go ahead and use those thin and thick lines? Well, remember now, so if you've got your lines, thin to thick to thin to thick, you think about that as if like they're shadows. So like if I'm going to do the underside of the body, certainly I'll do a little heavier because it's a little heavier light. But on top here, I'll go a little bit lighter with that. So let's start off with just a little bit, just some light lines inside the ear. I'll come up a little bit off of here. And I'll take that down, and I'll bring it around for the neck here. As I come around here, I'm going to just bring that line up, and then I'll go a little heavier under the shadow there. You know, and then I'll let that overlap through that. Just that line here, heavier. The line there, and heavier. And you notice when I do the line work here, when I'm doing these lines, I'm not just going like this, like this. What I'm doing is I bring a little bit of that line back underneath it. And what that does is that gives a little bit of the idea that it's sticking up, or there's some depth or dimension to that, a little bit of overlap. Let's go ahead and take that here, there, there, there. And I get a little heavier there. So we're going into that. So we're going to the underside of the body. It's light, and then heavier, light for definition. I'll come back up to here. Remember, folks, that when we talked about pushing or pulling a line, this is where something like that really comes in handy. Light and heavy, heavy, light there. I'll start back up here. Here. And look, the toe there, toe pads there, and let's go back on the belly here. Heavier. Once again, down, toes, here, neck, you know, and back up into the head, its shape itself. Ear coming forward a little bit. Some little flurry, little bits of hair coming off there. Let's stern eye. Darken that in. Eye on the side. Oh, that snout. Go. Darken that up a little bit, and we have Mr. Fox. So the idea here is being this that we spent some time looking at him, we play with him, we're sort of adjusting with the shapes. Yeah, we can come back in later, and I can add a little bit more, say, darker line here, a little bit more under the feet here. I can thicken up some of these lines if I want to add a little more drama to the underside of their body. But I think it's always better to sort of work a little bit lighter, and then you can always come back in later and darken up your line work afterwards. Certainly, it's always easier to go a little heavier than it is to sort of pull back on that dark work at the very beginning. There, so augment that, change that a little bit, add in some more shading, some more shadowing in there, just by implying a little bit of the light and dark line work. All right, so that's it for Mr. Fox here. So we're going to go ahead and go on, but you go ahead and enjoy yours, have a little fun with that, and we'll see you on the next drawing.